This is Dave Lynn, a good friend of mine. Has been a mentor in ministry for a while, a successful author, and he's written several books on fundraising. And he and I thought we would be cool and do a Zoom call and record it, and I couldn't get the audio to work. So here we are sitting in his backyard, enjoying the sunshine, and excited to talk to you about a packet that hopefully by now you have received. It looks like this. And I wanted to just explain, you've got the first 2 pages in here, look like this. Explains what the car wash is. Actually, do I have the right 2? Thank you. So the first one is the Coronavirus Hands-Off Car Wash Fundraiser, attention to parents. And then the next sheet right here is just explaining more about how the fundraiser works. We're gonna leave that for you to read because obviously that's in your hands now. But if you look, there's a packet here that describes several kind of like best practices or tips rather, and that's what I'm gonna ask Dave to go over. But before I do, I have to say, Dave and I were talking a couple months ago about fundraisers with camp coming up here in July, and he brought me this idea, and I thought it was a great idea back when it was called the Hands-Off Car Wash. But now with all the social distancing and all the quarantining and all the things that are surrounding this, we thought, wow, this is very providential. This is perfect because in the past, obviously, we've had the Rent-A-Kid and things like that, and people are more hesitant to have people over. And so this not only works well because of this time of that we're going through, but also, as Dave's going to explain, it really taps in on the heart of what these fundraisers are, which is really sponsoring a young person as they make moves to advance their spiritual journey. So, Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about your thinking in creating this, and then we can talk about some of the tips.
Sure, Steve. Thank you very much. If you look at your tip sheets, tip number 1 kind of gives some reasons why I created it, and I'll just summarize those for you. I've been doing youth ministry for a lot of years, and I got so tired of car washes and candy bar sales and those kinds of things. In fact, I remember doing a candy bar sale. We were trying to sell candy bars to go, to raise money for camp, and this one kid comes up to me and says, Dave, I ate the whole case of candy bars. So I ate the cost of those candy bars, and I just got real tired of that. And so I did some research on fundraising. I ended up writing a couple books on fundraising for youth groups. And one of the ideas that really took off was the whole direct approach to fundraising. Most of what we do for youth ministry is the indirect approach. We sell candy bars, or we provide a service like a car wash or the Rent-A-Kid, or we have a banquet or something like that. And so people give to get a candy bar, their car washed, or to go to the banquet. But the direct approach, which is what the hands-off car wash is you give directly to a young person because you care about them and you want them to grow as young people. You want them to grow spiritually. And so you still are selling something, but you are the thing you're selling. You are, and we'll explain that in just a minute. But it's real important for us to see the distinction, because most of the fundraising we do in the church is the direct approach. Every time you put money in an offering plate or give online or put it in the box, that's just a direct approach. And for some reason, when it comes to youth ministry over the years, we got into this habit of the indirect approach. So we've tried these before, and they've been very successful, and they raise a lot more money in a lot less time. So that's kind of a summary of tip number 1. If you'll grab the tips, let's look at tip number 2, because we're going to begin to explain how to do this. And tip number 2 is you create a treasure map. And no, this isn't a buried treasure, but you're asking people to give of their treasure to help you. So what I'd like you to do, and we'll keep moving forward, but when you turn this off, what I'd like you to do is think of 10 people that you think might give money to support your trip to camp, and write them on this page. You don't have to fill out anything else. Just the first 10 names on here will give you a treasure map, and those are the people that you're going to go ask for the funds. You put your name at the top, and then your phone number and email, just so you'll have this in case you lose it. And then Steve's going to talk about the bottom of the packet and what that has for you to do.
Yeah, so we realized that time is ticking away, and the camp dates are July 6th through the 12th. And we're looking to raise about $400 a student. I think the cost of camp is somewhere in the $345 range, and the rest of that, of course, would go toward transportation and some of the snacks and other things that we're going to need. And so what we want to do is get ready for this. And so our suggestion is that once you have this packet, to get started on it right away. We want the fundraiser to go through the end of June. By that point, obviously, we're just days away from camp starting. And I reached out to the camp because obviously they've been hit hard by groups not being able to be there. And so the lady I did speak to said that they are still planning on having camp. So that's why we're moving forward like we are. So our recommendation is, once you have this, go ahead and get started on it. And we're shooting toward that $400 mark.
Thanks, Steve. The next tip number 3, is complete the sentence stems. And there are 5 sentence stems there for you to complete. Take a pencil, because you will make mistakes, with an eraser, and fill those out. And first one is, the purpose of our youth ministry is. Now, Steve and I thought about giving you that sentence, but we want you to put that in your own words, because that's one of the reasons why people are going to give to you, because they see that you've put some thought into this. The second sentence is, our youth ministry helps me. So you look at what kind of blessing you've gotten from the youth ministry. The third sentence is, the best thing about our youth ministry is. Again, that's personal to you. Different young people will say different things. The fourth one is, please pray that. So you want to give potential donors prayer requests that you have, and they should be related to camp. Like, what do you want God to do in your life? So, and then the fifth one is, your contribution will go to, and that's to the summer camp program. So if you can fill those tips out, put some thought into it. We'll move on to tip number 4, and we have the certificates and how to fill them out. And on the front of the certificate, it says your church name. So you're going to put the Ridge Christian Fellowship, and then the next one is the donor's name, and they are going to be a youth champion. So this is what they get for donating dollars to your camp trip this summer. So you want to fill that out. You want to show that to them. Then you want to turn it over, and you want to take those sentence stems that you've already completed, and you want to fill them out here along with your name in the box. So that's tip number 4. You should have this completed for each of those 10 people. Now, maybe you thought of 12 people, or maybe you thought of 6. Whatever you have, you're going to fill these out. We have 10 per packet. If you need more, we will get you more. Contact Steve, and he will get you more of these certificates. We'll go to tip number 5, and that's mail a letter. And most of you will be doing it by mail. You might have a grandma and grandpa where you're already seeing them, or maybe you live with them, so it's safe for you to do a face-to-face with them. But most people, you're going to put this packet or take these certificates, and put them in a business size envelope, and you're going to mail individually to that donor. So when you do that, make sure you also include a letter. We have a sample letter here. Don't copy this sample letter. This was just an example, and it will sound weird if you copy this, but it does give you kind of an idea of what you would write in a letter. So you're going to write that letter. You're going to put each of these completed certificates on both sides into that envelope, and you're going to mail it to each of those 10 potential donors. And when you mail that, we recommend that you go ahead and maybe do Skype or FaceTime. You let them know you'd want to talk to them, make sure they already have this before you do that. That's tip number 5. Tip number 6 on the next page is ask people to become champions. Now, this is true whether you're doing it on Skype or you just mail the letter. You never actually ask them for the money. You ask them to be a champion. So there's a paragraph before the 5 sentences that you read to them, and you can do this over Skype or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever social media you would like to use. And you read those 5 sentences to them, and then you would give them this letter, or you would say, look at the rest of this certificate. And they would look at it and they would see the amounts and how they can give, and they give. So you never ask for the money. You let them look at it and make a decision. And it's okay to have a little silence when they're looking, because they're trying to decide which of those amounts to check. So if you start breaking up the conversation because you feel tense and you say, oh, you only have to give $5, then they'll only give $5. So it's best just to let them decide how much they're going to give, and then they will break the silence and they will tell you what they'll do. Now, if they just can't give, maybe they lost a job during this coronavirus crisis, that's okay. We don't want to pressure anybody to give either. We'll move on to tip number 7. Once you've done this on the certificate, you ask them what needs prayer in their life. And they'll tell you. And if you feel comfortable, we'd like you to pray right then and there if you're on Skype, or they're in your living room at your grandma and grandpa, or maybe it's your parents. And so you are going to ask them what needs prayer, and then you're going to pray for them. If you feel really uncomfortable doing that, that's okay. Tell them that you will be praying for them, and you write those prayer requests down, and then you need to pray for them. This fundraiser, it's pretty easy, and what you're selling is these 5 sentences that you filled out. You're selling yourself to these people. You're saying that it's really important that I go to camp. I really do want to read the Bible and pray and grow spiritually, and this is an opportunity, and I hope you can help me because this is very expensive for me to do. And you'll be surprised how much money that you're going to raise. Yeah. And Steve and I will also be praying for you as you go through this process. And so Steve, you have anything to add?
Yeah, just one of the things, I thought this was a great point that David made when we were first talking about this, is that there does need to be some element of almost like a tithing of even these efforts. And so if you look on the back of the certificate, on the bottom it says, a portion of your contribution will go to Eagle's Wings of Grace. And that's a ministry that the Ridge has partnered with very closely. They do wonderful work with women who are sometimes on the streets, usually ill-prepared to go out into the workplace. And what they do is they get them clothes, help them pick up an outfit, make sure their hair is done, coach them on how to go and do an interview, connect them, do some networking, get a resume together, all those important things so that those women can sit down and become gainfully employed and see what God can do in their lives through that. And especially during this time, there are going to be a lot of people that are looking for jobs. So it's a wonderful ministry that we've partnered with. And so let that encourage you too, that when you're going out and you're talking to people, it's not just for your camp experience, although that in and of itself would be very worthy to give toward, but you're also asking them to give a portion to this wonderful ministry. So Dave, thank you so much.
Oh,
seriously,
my
brother,
pleasure
for putting this together. And I'll put my stuff up on the screen. If you have my number and you have the email, if you have any questions, let me know. But just know I'm going to be out here doing this too. Hannah and Luke and I are going to be contacting people. And for those of you families that have multiple siblings, absolutely hit up the same people, because if they're invested in your family and they're invested in you guys, they're going to be invested in your brother and your sister just as much as they are in you.
And if I can add to that, Steve, I have 2 daughters, and we also did, not this one, but we did another one similar to this, and both of my daughters hit the same donors because that's who we know. You can also ask your parents, because there are folks that they know, like at work or in maybe they have a hobby or whatever. They know people that would give that you don't know, but if you send it to those folks, they would probably give. So do this with your parents, or if you live with your grandparents, with your grandparents. There are 10 people that you know out there, and you're thinking, oh, they won't give. You'll be surprised. People do care about you, they love you, and they want the best for you spiritually.